Hey guys, do you like cars? Would you ever consider investing in rare collectible cars for as little as $100? That's right, $100. Sometimes even $42, that's the lowest I've seen. Let me explain. Okay, so a lot of people love cars, okay? They think they're beautiful, they think they're sleek, they think they're cool. But only the super rich get to afford, the best classic cars. But now this app called Rally Road is changing that. They look at a car's rarity, history, value, condition, and so on, and what they do is that they make it affordable for the average person to afford. In this video, I'm going to explain how this works, what their process is there actual merit to investing in classic cars? I'm going to go through the pros and the cons of this whole app. Okay, jumping right into how it works. Now Rally Road, what they do is when they buy the car, they divide up the car into 2,000 shares, basically partial ownerships in the car. And what they do is that they sell those shares on their app to the average person.
Rally Road is an investment app where we take high-value appreciating assets, like collectible cars, and turn them into stocks. Essentially, each car on Rally Road is a mini public company, which is divided up into 2,000 shares. Investors can create a diversified portfolio of interest in each of these collectible cars, share by share, car by car.
Now the point I see in this is that it creates more demand than supply. I think that's really clever. Having only 2,000 shares in one car means that, I don't know, if there's about 10,000 people wanting to buy the car, there'll always be more demand for it than there is supply. And so that's perfect for their vision as a company.
This is the real deal. This is a 1955 Porsche Speedster. There's only 193 of them ever made in this color, which is called Speedster Blue. Makes it very rare. Some of the things you look at when we look at cars like these are originality. Original engine, original transmission, original starter button. Every wheel came with the car when it first came out. The doors, the original cars from the door.
Wow.
So to have something 60 years old, that's sort of the beginning of Porsche.
And the value of this right now?
400,000 or so.
400,000.
And shares will trade originally at around $200 a share.
For example, say this Porsche that their headline Porsche that they always advertise about, say it's worth $425,000. You see that online, the share price is $212.50. Now, how did they get that number? They literally just took $425,000 and divided by 2,000, for each share. And this is one of those premium cars. They have cars that have an offering price of about $100,000, and therefore you're only spending about $50 a share. Making it more affordable to everyone. Now, what I really like to get into is the whole financial aspect of it. How is there real merit to this investing platform? The CFO and co-founder in an interview said that the app is an alternative asset investment.
To introduce yourself briefly?
Absolutely. I'm Max Niederstostert. I'm the co-founder and CFO at Rally Road, which is an alternative asset investment platform.
And what does that mean? It means that you're investing in something other than stocks, bonds, and cash. So basically a rule of thumb is alternative asset management or investments are investments that are made off the stock market. Now there has been a lot of articles lately saying that classics and collectible cars have been the best performing asset for the last decade. Now that's really interesting to me, that one line there. Rally Road likes to point out that the vintage cars as a category as a whole returned 288% in the past decade, beating the S&P 500 by double. Now, other sources that I've been researching have said it's around 404%, but in every case, it said it's over 250%. Sometimes 300%, sometimes 404, sometimes 428%. So there's huge potential for returns here. One source cited the K500 index as an example. Now you may be thinking, I've never heard of the K500 index before. Now the K500 index simplified is basically just like the S&P 500 but for collector cars. It tracks how well they're doing as a whole category. Now what's interesting about the K500 index is that during the 2008-2009 financial crisis, they actually rose up even more. They've been continuing to go up and up throughout the whole decade, the two-year range, 5-year range, and 10-year range. So now that we've discovered that investing in classic cars and vintage cars has merit, I like to look into the leadership of this company. Now, we have the three co-founders, the CEO being Chris Bruno, the CFO being Max Ostholt, and the CPO, the Chief Product Officer, being Rob Petrezzo. Now, what's interesting about the CEO and the CFO is that they both attended the same schools. So they obviously were some kind of friends. They attended the same college and the same university at New York University. I've been studying each of their profiles on LinkedIn a lot, and I've been looking at other interviews they've done. I've looked at their work experience, their education, and I'm pretty impressed, I have to say. The CFO in particular really impressed me because of his background in investment banking. He really seems to know what he's doing. He's been in the industry for a long time now, and they all seem to work together very well. The CEO has a lot of experience in building companies. What he does is that he's basically the entrepreneur of it all. The CFO has his experience in investment banking. He knows his finances very well. And the CPO is the very creative side of it. He's probably the one that makes the website look so pretty, the app looks so good, takes all the pictures. He probably decides on a lot of those things. And I think they work together all very, very well. And that is very good signs for the leadership. Okay, now into the pros and cons of it. The first pro that I have is that it allows you to invest in your passion. Not everyone gets enjoyment looking over Microsoft's, in-depth portfolio, reading their financials and all those things. So investing in classic cars just seems like such a refresher and something really, really interesting to do.
And so we've looked for markets where there's the huge discrepancy between the people who are very passionate about the asset classes and the people who can actually get into the asset classes and basically bridge that gap.
Another pro that is probably appealing to a lot of other people is that it's easier to understand than most other investments. A lot of other investments like stocks, you have to keep up with their financials, you have to read their earnings reports, you have to read their vision, their background and histories, to really understand the worth of their business and the value that they will bring in the future. However, cars are a little bit more simpler, as the CFO states.
In these asset classes, I can show you a 10-year-old who knows more about a Ferrari 250 GTO than the person who actually is able to pay $50 million for one, right? So the information is much, much more even than it is in other asset classes, but the access is much more limited than it is in other asset classes.
And I think that's really true. It doesn't take a whole lot to know about these cars. There are certain factors that you have to look for, and this is obviously a professional team that knows the industry very well. And so you could feel like you can just really have fun with it and enjoy it. The first con that I'm going to put is liquidity. The way the company works is that you only have 1 day of liquidity per month. So what they do is that I'll just let the CFO explain this.
The problem with those secondary markets is usually you lack liquidity. How do you deal with that?
So we get everyone in the same room on the same day and basically create that marketplace for a shorter amount of time than the normal stock market, but to create that liquidity and to create that excitement in a very short window.
Okay, so basically, as soon as they do their IPO, they do the initial public offering, they sell the 2,000 shares for the price that they calculated. And then once a month, they'll have a day where they get all the people together and they try to sell and buy each other's shares. And I think that's a really smart idea because, with only having 2,000 shares, obviously, if you have one person trying to sell midway through the month and another person wanting to buy later, it's hard to connect the two. So having them all together in one period makes it a lot easier. But also the problem with that is that you can't get your money out quickly if you need to. So you have to be cautious of that. One pro is based on security of this is that they're SEC regulated, the Security Exchanges Commission. They will regulate this like a normal stock exchange will. A con is that you have no access to the car, unfortunately. You may have ownership in it, it may be exciting and fun to learn about, but you have no access to the car. So that's something you have to keep in mind.
Before I get a more serious question, if you buy share in this Ferrari Testarossa, does it also include drive time?
We actually have a t-shirt that says, "No, you can't drive it."
Let me in! Let me in!
However, a pro for that is that they have talked about having racetrack days where you can actually go to the event and you can drive similar cars that are less rare, but it will still be a Ferrari that has more miles and a less rare, whatever it may be. So this way, they can kind of, you know, unite the community together. They can give you an experience that's something physical without actually, you know, depreciating the value of the car by putting miles on it. You don't want to do that. Another con they have is that it's only available in the United States. They said that they do have plans to expand it to the rest of the world, especially Europe and Germany, which they said they have a focus on. But as of right now, it's only actually in 32 states. It's not even on all 50 states. And the reason for that is because they aren't the brokers themselves. They are not a stockbroker commission that you can buy and sell shares on. They work through independent brokers in each state, and so they're slowly working on getting all 50 states. One thing to note is that they do have a brick and mortar store in New York City, and I think that's really interesting for them to do. They wanted to have something physical for investors to see, to kind of feel, and you can go in there. It's only open to the public on Saturdays, and you can go and buy merch or whatever. I don't care about that, but I think that has, you know, a really interesting view on it. They have all the some of the collectors' cars there on display, and I think that's a great publicity play for them. Another big issue that they have is that they're relatively young. They've only been around for 1 or 2 years as a startup, and so you don't have that track record to depend on for them. But it's really just a revolutionary thing, and for as little as $42 to get involved, I think it's worth the risk personally. And that's one of the best parts of this investment, is that you can do it with, you know, less than $100. You can do it with something you just earned for, you know, a day's work. Now, lastly, for my favorite pro on this list is that they have skin in the game. For every car that they put out there, they buy up shares up to 10% at the same price that we do. So if we're paying, you know, $50 per share, they're buying it for $50 per share, up to 10% of it.
We actually invest in all of the cars as well, so you know that we believe in them. We buy at least 2 and as much as 10% of each car.
Anyways, guys, this wraps up the video. Let me know if you'll be investing in this. Does this sound interesting to you? I won't be investing in it because it's not available in Idaho, but if it was, I would definitely put at least $50 in there and buy a share just to test it out. My name is Kin Matuk, and I'll see you guys next time.